Tonight, we got another great guest for you, Doug Noll. We're here to talk about emotional intelligence. Are y'all ready for that conversation? Some of you aren't. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Talking Junk.
I'm your host, Jason Melendez.
Live now every week on Fridays.
Talking Junk.
A multitude of professionals in different aspects, different walks of life.
You have to come on and talk junk like a normal person.
This episode is sponsored by Heaven's Pantry's Excalibur. With 6 simple ingredients: dates, cashews, almonds, cocoa powder, coconut oil, and sea salt. You cannot go wrong with this 100% all-natural, gluten-free, vegan brownie. It's going to give you all the energy you need through your workout, through the morning, through your jog. Hell, if you use our next product, it'll help you through the hangover. And our next product being Dizzle, straight out of the West Coast. It is the premium luxury liqueur, the mango cognac. It is only classified as a liqueur because it is mixed with cognac and tequila with hints of mango and citrus. Be sure to pick yours up now. Go to thedizzlebrand.com. It is 80 proof. You cannot go wrong. This thing mixes with everything. You don't take my word for it. Look at our Instagram. You'll see all of the recipes that we've come up with. They're all amazing. My favorite, have none. Dizzle mixes with them all. So be sure to go to dizzlebrand.com and pick up yours today. Welcome to Talking Junk, the podcast that comes to you live every Friday night. I'm your host, Jason Melendez, and I have another great guest for you tonight. Tonight, we are going to talk about emotional intelligence. Some of you guys out there are not ready for this conversation, but that's why we're going to have it, because we're here to talk about the things that you don't want to talk about. So here is my guest tonight, Mr. Doug Noll. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing great, Jason.
Thank you for coming on, man. It's an honor to have you on.
You're welcome. This is going to be fun, especially for people that don't know what emotional intelligence is.
Right, because myself, I learned about emotional intelligence about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So basically emotional intelligence is a form of social intelligence. And, you can kind of equate it as a form of, we have different kinds of intelligences as human beings. So we have IQ, which is our cognitive intelligence. And then we have the ability to think critically. That's like a Watson Glaser test. And then we have emotional intelligence, which is intelligence around emotions. And emotional intelligence really measures 3 basic competencies: how emotionally self-aware you are, how well you emotionally self-regulate, and how good are you at what's known as cognitive empathy. And when you have all of those skills mastered, you have high emotional intelligence. And when you don't have those skills, your emotional intelligence is lower. So that's what it is, basically.
Now, how does one develop skills? I mean, I would assume that the first step is to be self-aware of what emotional intelligence is. So after you're aware of what emotional intelligence is, what are some of the steps that you take?
What I have learned, one of the ways that I developed the skills that I teach is as a co-founder of the Prison of Peace Project. I've taught over 20,000 inmates in California prisons and Connecticut prisons how to be peacemakers and mediators. And I learned in teaching over 12 years in all of these in maximum security prisons that you don't try to teach somebody emotional self-awareness or emotional self-regulation. What you teach them is how to do cognitive empathy. And that is through a skill that technically is called affect labeling. And when you learn how to affect label, the easy way to think about that is emotional reflection. When you learn how to reflect somebody else's emotional experience.
Now, what is affect label in layman's terms?
It means affect labeling is just, let's forget that I even said that. It's a technical term, scientific term. Let's think of emotional reflection. So let's suppose that you're really angry. If I reflect your emotions this way. I'll say, Jason, man, you are really pissed off. You're angry. You're frustrated. You feel completely disrespected, insulted. Nobody appreciates you. You feel completely ignored. And
Sounds
you're a
like
little
my
anxious.
regular week.
And you're a little anxious and worried. And you're a little embarrassed and humiliated. And you're sad. And you're upset and distressed. And you feel completely abandoned and betrayed. Nobody loves you.
Are you starting to read my mind now? Are you a mind reader?
It's the experience that every human being has. But the point being that notice how when I was speaking to you, I was using a you statement and describing, if you were upset, how your emotional experience might be. When I practice this, when I tell you how you're feeling using a you statement, it develops my brain so that I can automatically become emotionally self-aware. And that leads me to automatically be able to emotionally self-regulate. Now, all these people out there are going to tell you that it takes weeks or years, or you've got to go to a cave somewhere and see a guru and do therapy to develop your emotional intelligence. All BS. My students inside of prison and outside of prison typically develop their emotional intelligence in 4 to 6 weeks. Most of them. There are a few that take longer, but most take 4 to 6 weeks if you just practice it correctly. And it's amazing what it does. It's all based on brain science, how our brains process emotional information.
Now, you didn't always teach this. You were a lawyer at one point, right?
I am still a lawyer, but I haven't practiced in 22 years. I was a trial lawyer for 22 years.
So after you pass the bar, you don't got to keep like certifying, right? You just,
well, you've got to keep up with your continuing legal education, but that's about it. And I tried cases for 22 years, and then I went back to school in the late 90s and earned my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies to become a peacemaker, and left the practice of law in 2000 to open up my peacemaking and mediation business. And one of the problems that I was having was that I was getting called into high intensity, high emotion conflicts, and I didn't have any good tools for calming people down.
Yeah, like a baton or a shield.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
I'm only
and let me just
in
tell you,
high stress situations in jail, man, you got to be careful.
Well, I'm a secondary black belt, so I'm not too worried about violence. The violence doesn't. I mean, I've never had to use it, but because I know it, I don't have to use it, and it's one of those situations. So my job is to come in and calm people down, and I didn't have any effective tools. Even after all this intense graduate study I did, people just didn't have any tools. But finally, I developed this skill of listening to and reflecting emotions. 3 steps: ignore the words, read the emotions, reflect back the emotions with the you statement. So you ignore the words so you don't get triggered. You read the emotions, and most people go, how do I do that? Well, it turns out our brains are hardwired to read each other's emotions. We just never use the skill because our society says emotions are bad. They make you weak. They make you vulnerable. You've got to be tough, the rugged individualist, and you've got to be macho and all that crap. It's all bullshit. Right. It's all bullshit. It's a myth that's been persistent for 4,000 years, and it's wrong. Neuroscience teaches today that we're 98% emotional and only 2% rational. So developing our emotional intelligence is a smart thing to do. It brings our whole being present in the moment. And it's not taught to us. It should be taught in the families. It's not. It should be taught in the schools. It's not. And it is a critical life skill. It's foundational. So to develop it, you ignore. You said you're talking to somebody who's upset. Ignore their words, read their emotions, and then reflect back their emotions with a simple you statement. You're angry, you're frustrated, you're worried, you're concerned.
So this almost sounds like a tactic that some therapists use.
Actually, very few. I have not met any therapists that know anything about this. And I'll just tell you, my niece just graduated with her doctorate in psychology, and she was not taught this stuff in her doctoral program. I've never met a therapist that knows anything about this. And the reason is they don't study neuroscience. They study old psychological theories. And they don't want to go into the hard science of how the brain actually operates. This is all based on a seminal study that was done by neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman in 2007 out of UCLA. And what his brain scanning study showed is that when you label somebody's emotions. When they're upset, the emotional centers of the brain quiet down, and at the same time, the thinking part of the brain, what's called the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, activates. And the whole process takes about 45 seconds. And that's why
that's not a long time.
it is not a long time. And it happens every single time because we're hardwired for it. There is no way you cannot calm down when you are properly reflected as an angry person. And if you get upset yourself, you affect label yourself. You label your own emotions. Oh, I'm really angry right now. I'm really pissed off. I'm frustrated. I don't feel heard. I feel unappreciated. Oh yeah, and I'm worried and concerned and sad. And boom, down comes your emotions. And so not only can you calm somebody else down, you calm yourself down, and at the same time, you are building your emotional intelligence. It's incredible.
So, can you really calm down somebody who is ferociously indignant at the time in 90 seconds?
Yes, and I've taught thousands and thousands of life inmates in the most violent prisons in California how to do this, and they have successfully brought peace to their prison yards.
Wow.
One time, before the pandemic, I was teaching at Corcoran State Prison, which is one of our 2 megamax prisons. And I was in the secured housing unit. The first time I met these guys, they were all coming out of gangs. They were all violent offenders, most of them murderers. They were all in shackles and cages in a semicircle around me. And it was 100 feet from Charles Manson's cell. And
Pretty intimidating, huh?
It used to be. It isn't anymore, because I know how well this stuff is. These guys just glommed onto this stuff and completely changed their lives, and became amazing teachers and peacemakers in whatever.
Now, are these just prisoners that are there for sentences where they'll be kept behind bars, or do some of them reform and use these tactics on the outside?
My experience has been that every single one of them, when released, continues to use these skills on the outside. And many of them go into service work. They've been behind bars and now they want to pay back. And so they end up going into social services. They become drug and alcohol counselors, or they go into reentry hubs and coach people coming out of prison how to reenter society. And they use and teach these skills effectively. I'll give you another statistic about how effective this is. We've had, I would say, 6,000 of our students in prison who completed our courses have been released on parole, including lifers. Not one report of recidivism. Not one report of recidivism. No one has reoffended, to our knowledge. And we track people pretty closely.
Hey, those are big stats.
It's huge. And so if you're wondering, oh, why is emotional intelligence so important? Think about somebody who's serving a life sentence who would normally have a destroyed life.
Right.
And we teach them these skills, and they're able to re-enter society and be a productive person, giving back by living a life of service. That's
life-changing.
That's life-changing. And not only does it change their life, it changes the life of everybody around them. And now think about this. Now, okay, so you're not an offender and you haven't served a prison sentence. How wonderful would it be if you could develop your own emotional intelligence and all of a sudden be of service to everybody around you all the time, every day? And that's the power of all of this. What would it be like to never have another fight or argument again in your life?
Oh, we'd all be at peace.
Exactly. And that's what emotional intelligence gives you. The ability to never have a fight or argument again. Not in your relationships, not at work, not with your friends, not in school, never. What would it be like to be able to take a 2 or 3-year-old and stop the tantrums forever in about 4 months? Literally, they will never have another tantrum. It takes about 4 months, but after you start doing it, in 4 months, the tantrums are over with. Forever.
Now, do you just teach people who are incarcerated, or do you intend
I teach
to take
everybody. I've got online courses on my website. I have taught senior analysts at the Congressional Budget Office how to de-escalate members of Congress and staff.
Wow.
I have taught, I've taught obviously in many different organizations. I do private coaching for people who want private help. I do group coaching. I do workshops for people. In fact, I'm going back to Indianapolis. There's my website. I'm going to Indianapolis in a week or two to teach a whole bunch of school principals how to calm angry school children. And yeah, you're right on. That's the homepage of my website. And so I teach everybody.
And there are the courses: de-escalate, how to calm an angry person in 90 seconds or less.
That's my fourth book.
De-escalate group coaching sessions and parent game changer. Oh, there's one more: developing emotional competency.
Now, you can go to my website, dougnoll.co, but if you want to get to the goodie page, I created a special audience page for everybody who's watching and listening tonight. And you want to go to dougnoll.co/talking-junk. Now, the page isn't up yet. I'll put it up in the morning. So don't go to it right now because you've got a 404 error. But if you go to it in the morning, the page will be up. And on that page, free ebook that describes everything that I'm talking about. You can buy my fourth book, De-Escalate, that you just had up on the screen. You can buy a course for $200 for my De-Escalate video course. And if you want to go further and really develop your emotional competency, it's $800 off for the audience on my developing emotional competency course. And then from there, you can just go into the website. I have hundreds of articles and resources. I've got two YouTube channels. One is The Power of Emotional Competency, and the other one is Douglas Noll, and tons of resources out there for people to learn this stuff.
Look at that. And $800 off, you got to take advantage of that. You have to. Definitely go to dougnoll.com. Go do that.
So that's, in a quick nutshell, that is how I approach emotional intelligence. And what's really interesting to me is I look out on the internet for all these companies that claim to teach emotional intelligence. And the problem that I see with them is they tell you what emotional intelligence is, but they don't tell you how to do it.
Right. That's where it stops. They explain what it is, and they don't give you the steps.
I haven't seen anybody out there that has actually a set of skills, a learnable set of skills, that when practiced over a 4 to 6 week period will actually move the needle on your emotional intelligence. And so that's why I teach what I do. And also, I've never seen anybody out there that's figured out that the way you help people build their emotional intelligence is by learning how to listen to and reflect other people's emotions, to develop your own emotional self-awareness.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do.
Actually, it's not.
Well, on your own, it is.
On your own. You're absolutely right. Imagine trying to ride a bicycle on your own, learning how to ride a bicycle. A lot of crashes.
Yep, a lot of scrapes, a lot of bruises.
A lot of scraps. A lot of bruises, and you probably ding up the bike pretty good too.
Oh, yeah.
But you put training wheels on, and you got a teacher out there, or a coach, to help you get going. And once you got your balance, you got it all figured out, and the training wheels come off, what happens? The first couple of moments, you're a little wobbly. Oh my God, I don't have any training wheels. I'm going to fall over. But then you start moving, and all of a sudden your brain clicks in and you got it.
And then it turns into muscle memory after that.
This is exactly the same way.
Okay.
Exactly the same way. It is not difficult. It just takes knowledge and practice. And the problem is that the knowledge is not widespread because too many people do not like emotions. I mean, think about the workplace. Most people go to work and they're told, don't bring your emotional baggage to work.
Right. You leave it at the door.
You're told to leave 98% of who you are at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. If we're 98% emotional, only 2% rational, your employer is only asking you to bring in 2% of who you are. No wonder people are pissed off and quitting.
It's not realistic either.
Of course not. You can't.
No, you can't carry that baggage. Exactly. And most of the time, what's happening at work is going to remind you of the baggage you brought in.
That's right. And so why not spend the time to develop that part of you that is who you really are, your emotional self? Now, I'm not going to kid you. It can be the work although not difficult, it can be a little painful at times because all of us were traumatized as children. Now, there's not one person that I've ever heard of who did not suffer through childhood trauma.
Yeah. Adverse childhood experiences.
Adverse childhood experiences, the study out of San Diego. And it's worse than what they talk about because parents unknowingly engage in this insidious and pervasive form of emotional abuse called emotional invalidation. So, Jason, remember when you were 3 years old and you're running around outside and you fall down, you scrape your knee and start to cry? What are you told?
Suck it up.
That's right.
Man.
Be a man. Don't be a girly girl. Big boys don't cry.
Right.
You are fed a diet of that from about 18 months of age until you leave the home. And then it's peer pressure and everybody else is dumping on you too if you're emotional. You're being emotionally invalidated. You're being told that feeling is bad. You're being told that crying is bad. You're being told that being fearful is bad. You're being told that being angry is bad. Don't have emotions. You're not allowed to have emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that destroys the child's brain.
Right. Super unhealthy.
Super unhealthy. And you're aware of the ACEs study, which is great. So the adverse childhood experiences study shows that if you have 3 ACEs, 3 adverse childhood experiences, you got real problems. And guess what? 9 of the 13 ACEs are all emotional abuse of some kind or another.
Yeah, I'm currently going through adverse childhood experience training to do what you're doing now with emotional intelligence, but for ACEs.
That's right. So, but the upshot of all this is that by the time we become 6 years old, usually around 6, we're starting to have some agency. We're starting to be independent of mom and dad a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we're no longer the cute, cuddly little baby or the cute, cuddly, funny little toddler. We're a 6-year-old, kindergarten, and we're starting to develop our own individuality. And that's when most of the time, mom and dad start shutting the kid down. And the child all of a sudden learns that the world is an emotionally unsafe place to be and starts buttoning up, stuffing emotions, suppressing emotions, not showing anything, showing a nice facade on the outside, happy, 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 but on the inside, really wounded and hurting. And we carry this into adulthood. Most people stop their many people stop their emotional maturation process at 6 to 7 years old. It just stops because of all of this. They get into adulthood, and what do we see? We see a 40-year-old acting like a 6-year-old. Why is that? Because he is 6-year-old in that moment. Because there's no emotional maturity. They are not emotionally mature people. So part of this process of learning emotional intelligence and doing the work is you got to unpack some of that stuff. It's not difficult, and it can be a little painful, but it's not overwhelming. But you just got to recognize that you got to go back and do a little reprogramming. You've got a lot of malware back there that was back when you were a kid, and you got to reprogram that stuff. But these processes that I teach you how to do that in a pretty painless way. And it's not that. I mean, it's fast, 4 to 6 weeks, but it's not overwhelming. And so you overcome it, and eventually you get to the place where you can walk into any situation, any intense situation, and know what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, and be perfectly calm. It doesn't matter if people are just spitting anger in your face. You will not be moved by it at all. You'll just be very cool and collected and have inner peace and know exactly what to do to calm that person down.
Be water, my friend.
And isn't there a great joy in being able to do that?
Oh yeah. Now, how can you start to develop the emotional competency to develop cognitive and effective empathy in your relationships?
Okay, that's the last place you want to start. Here's how you do it. So ignore the words, read the emotions, reflect back the emotions with the you statement. You want to always start in super safe situations where if you make a mistake, you won't embarrass yourself. So think of it as a laboratory. You're an experimenter, you're a scientist, and you've got on your mythical lab coat, and you want to go out and test this to see how it works. Don't take my word for it. You got to go out and do it yourself. My favorite laboratory is Starbucks. And what you do is you walk in, you're going to go in and get a cup of coffee or a latte or whatever. And when you hand your credit card to the barista and you take your order, you look at them and say, you're really happy today. And almost always that's going to be true because Starbucks hires happy people for the most part. They're gregarious. They like to be around people. And, they're just doing a part-time gig maybe or full-time gig for temporary, but they're still happy. They're happy. So when you tell them they're happy, you're going to be right. And stop and detach and just observe clinically what they do. And you do this every day or every other day for a couple of weeks, and you're going to start observing the same thing happening over and over again. You're going to get exactly the same reaction every single time.
So it's basically a huge social experiment.
That's right. And then you go out, and when you go to the market and you're at the checkout counter and you're doing with a checkout person, same thing. Usually they're not so happy. They're usually tired.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they're usually tired or frustrated. But we used to tell them, you look really frustrated. Or you're mad, or you're really bored, whatever it might be. You just whatever comes into your head.
Really happy today.
Yeah, or they could be really happy, and you say, "Oh, you're really happy today."
That was a little bit of sarcasm.
I understand, but whatever it is, then put on your lab coat, detach, observe. Do that 3 or 4 or 5 times. Then next time, go to a restaurant. And your server comes up and, hey, I'm Doug, I'm your server. And you say, oh, you look really frustrated tonight. Yeah, I'm really frustrated. Half the people didn't show up for work, and now all of a sudden they're going to start talking to you. And you just label it, and that's really frustrating. It really makes you angry. Yeah. And you feel disrespected. Yeah. And your boss is really pissing you off. Yeah, making you work hard. Yeah. And it's not fair. Yeah. Great. Now you're going to get the best table service you've ever gotten before in your life. And
so really, no matter what age you are, you can run this social experiment for yourself.
That's right.
You can even do it on the playground as a child. You can do it in school as a teenager. You can do it on the football field as a sportsman.
That's right. But start where it's really safe with strangers. And then after 2 or 3 weeks of doing the Starbucks, the supermarket, the restaurants, fast food restaurants, wherever you go, you'll start seeing the same reaction every single time. And
now, why are strangers the best to start with?
Because you can't embarrass yourself. You'll never see them again. So if you blow it, It doesn't make a big deal. We want to make it safe. You don't want to jump into the deep end of the swimming pool when you don't know how to swim. I want you to do a pinky dip in the shallow end of the pool so you can build some confidence. Then once you've gotten through the process of these strangers, then you can start doing it with friends. And it'll just be something like, oh, boy, yeah, you're really frustrated, or you're really pissed off. And just do it with friends, one-offs, really, really just very fast and fluid and subtle. Then,
now, what age would you recommend starting this little hypothesis?
If you're doing it yourself, actually, I've had 6-year-olds. Parents have started to affect label or emotionally reflect for their 6-year-olds. And within 3 weeks, the 6-year-olds will say, Mommy, you're really mad. Mommy, you're really frustrated. And the kids are de-escalating their parents. And that's the proof of how powerful this is. The kids will pick it up in a heartbeat.
Kids are
you start affect labeling. You start labeling and doing this process, this cognitive empathy skill. You start as soon as the kids start to verbalize. Even before, at 1 year old, you can start doing it. Emotional centers of the brain don't start to mature until about 18 months. So, and we can get into theory, there's a lot of neuroscience behind this, but you can start, you can start with them very young by modeling to the child and reflecting to the child what the child's emotional experience is. And you will be amazed at how quickly they pick it up and how quickly they change. Fights and arguments go away. You will not have any more fights and arguments. If you got teenagers, teenagers can be a little tough. But if you start listening to the emotions and reflecting them and being very gentle with it and being very graceful and not pushing it. I have had so many reports of parents saying, my kids put down the phone, they leave their rooms, they stop gaming, and they come in because they want to be with me.
We're definitely gonna have to implement that in my household. I got a 6-year-old and 5-year-old running around, and a big old 13-year-old.
Okay.
So
So with the 5 and 6-year-olds, all you got to do is whenever they have an emotion, and they're emotional all the time. I mean, they're
oh yeah,
that's
I
all they
got
are.
3 girls. There's nothing
Yep.
but emotion running through
That's
this
right.
house.
So just as an experiment, label their emotions for them. Oh, sweetie, you're really excited. You're really happy. You're having a lot of fun. Oh, sweetie, you're really angry. You're really frustrated. You're bored. And put a little, emotion behind the words, and watch what they do. Put on your lab coat, detach, and observe. And what they're going to do is they're going to do this. Yeah, I am. And all of a sudden they'll calm down. And then 10 minutes later, they get escalated again, or they get all emotional, and you just do it again, over and over and over and over again, and watch the change. Your little girls will come to you and start hugging you spontaneously.
Oh, they do that. They do that anyway. They're very lovable. They just
watch.
They can be a handful sometimes.
Well, of course they can. They're children. They're growing. Children have to learn how to modulate their emotions. And so they have to experience the whole continuum of emotion. So if you take the anger emotions, you've got to go all the way from enraged to just being mildly annoyed on the other side. And they've got to experience every single emotion in between to understand what it is they're experiencing. Now, if you allow them to do that and you coach them through it by labeling the experience they're having, they learn. If you tell them, don't do that, stop being angry, go to your room, which is what most parents do, or many parents do, then they don't learn anything. They learn that emotions are bad and they don't develop.
Which is because their parents were taught the same way that they're trying to teach them.
And there's that. You're absolutely right. And the other aspect is when a child becomes emotional and the parent is not emotionally intelligent, the parent is going to feel anxiety. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Oh, I don't like this. And so the brain will immediately try to protect. The parent's brain will try to protect the parent by telling the kid not to have any emotion, because if the kid doesn't have any emotion, then I'm going to feel better.
The parent don't have any emotion.
That's right. And I'm going to feel good. So it becomes very selfish. And it's totally unconscious, but very selfish and self-protective. It's self-soothing.
Right. Well, this is a powerful conversation, and I hope that I am able to pass your information along to one of my mentors in the ACEs Matter program, and maybe we can have you as a guest speaker at one of our.
Love to do it.
I would love to just keep you here for another 2 hours to soak up all this information.
Obviously, I'm passionate about this too, but I know we have short time. But I hope I've given you at the 50,000 foot level, without going down into the weeds about a lot of stuff. Everybody's gotten a pretty good idea of what.
Right, we got a clear-cut line of sight to where the goal should be, and now all we have to do is find which road we need to take.
That's right. It's just a matter of deciding that this is something I want, and then learning how to do it. If you go to the website, go to dougnoll.co/talking-junk. Page will be up tomorrow. That will get you started. There's enough information on that page alone to get you started. And you just have to make the decision this is something I want to learn.
Just as soon as I get the information from Doug, I will put it up on the Instagram page and the Facebook page, and it'll be there for you to access at your discretion. Well, Doug, thank you very much for coming on, man. Again, like I said, I'd love to have you on for another 2-3 hours to talk about this, but you are a very busy man. You have lives to change, so we're not going to keep you too much longer. But we do want to thank you for coming on and changing our lives, at least giving us the first couple steps to changing our lives.
Well, thank you, Jason. I'm making a mission for my life to teach as many people these skills as I possibly can, because I've seen how transformational they are. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come and have this conversation with you, and also to everybody who's listening and watching, hopefully inspire you to take the next step and learn how to do this stuff.
Right. Well, thank you again. I'll be sure to pass on the website and get it up and running as soon as you send me the information. Thanks a lot, Doug. I'll see you later.
Thank you, Jason.
Have a great day. Junkers, that was Doug Noll. Go to his website, Make sure you get all this information, soak it up like a sponge. Teach everybody, man. Each one teach one. We're all responsible for each other in this mundane world that we live in. We have to teach ourselves to teach each other to teach the next generation. They're the ones that are vulnerable, and if we can teach them, if we can lead them the right way, those aces won't keep coming. We will not repeat history, so to speak. So tomorrow night, come and join us in the break room. We are talking about a conspiracy theory that we just found out about. These conspiracy theories they're rolling in every day. I'm pretty sure now with the queen gone, God rest her soul, there'll be more conspiracy theories coming in. But we're going to talk about the Challenger. With Artemis canceled twice already, we got some more rockets coming out. So what are we to expect? Are we to expect another Challenger incident? Or was the Challenger even a real incident? That's not what I'm hearing. Stay tuned tomorrow night. Only in the break room, we handle the big topics. Stay tuned tomorrow night in the break room. And next week, Friday, we'll have another great guest like Doug on for you. But like I said, stay tuned. We'll have that website up and running for you in the morning.